Good evening and good Erev Shabbos, everybody, and thank you so much for joining me. In fact, if you're joining me right now, I give you a tremendous amount of credit. Tonight is a very, very busy night. It's been a busy month, a busy week. In fact, I give myself credit for being here right now because that's how busy we all are. But given the fact that the Zman for B'dikas Chametz is technically a few minutes away, maybe for those of us who have a chance to just stop and catch our breath, this is a perfect opportunity to just reflect several minutes before we fulfill a mitzvah that we only do once a year. The mitzvah B'dikas Chametz, when we search our homes for Chametz and make sure that we have done a good job over the past few weeks as we have been cleaning our homes and preparing for Pesach, we do this one final check to make sure that we know exactly where all the Chametz is. Now, without a doubt, B'dikas Chametz, the search for Chametz, is a fulfillment of an important technical requirement. We can't, after all, go into Pesach if we don't know where the Chametz is. Some of the Chametz we sell, some of it we get rid of, but we have to have a good handle on the Chametz that's in our home. And particularly because we are going to destroy Chametz tomorrow, we're going to burn Chametz tomorrow, we need to have found the Chametz and put that Chametz aside if our intention is to, in fact, destroy it. But beyond the technical requirement of B'dikas Chametz, and of course, on a certain level, that is the most important. We do find within the writings of Chazal, particularly within the Sifrei Chasidus, but not only, that the act of B'dikas Chametz is one which, to a certain extent, reflects and models a different type of B'dika, and that is the B'dika, the search, the examination that should take place inside of ourselves. It's very interesting that Chazal tell us, it's a Gemara in several places, and there are different types of examples where Chazal point to the fact that Chametz is, on a certain level, is representative of the Yetzer Hara. Chazal tell us that sometimes often we want to do the right thing, we want so much to fulfill the Ratzon of Hashem, but what gets in the way? So the Lashon of Chazal, famous Gemara in one case, is Sa'or Shebe'isa, that which causes literally the dough to rise. Again, in this case, symbolic of the Yetzer Hara. So, of course, there are many different ways that we can understand how and in what way Chametz represents the Yetzer Hara. But assuming for a moment that Chametz, at least for this week, is in fact this evil force that needs to be reckoned with, so then we can appreciate the idea of sort of turning the lights off, immersing ourselves in an otherwise dark, secluded environment, and then taking a candle or a flashlight and looking very closely and searching very closely, not only around ourselves, but within inside of ourselves as well. As the pasuk says, that when we want to return to Hashem, it requires chipus, it requires searching, much like the way we go ahead and we search for Chametz. Now, I want to share with you a very, very beautiful idea, which will hopefully take this idea a little bit to the next level. Reb Moshe Feinstein in the Sefer Darash Moshe, and this is also found in the Haggadah Vayagid Moshe, which is a collection of beautiful Divrei Torah that Reb Moshe Zichrono Livracha had in regards to Pesach. He shared a very, very interesting insight. Reb Moshe pointed out that according to many Rishonim, including Rashi and the Ran and the Rambam and others as well, the Bittul Chametz that we are going to recite both tonight and on Shabbos morning, when we declare that our Chametz should be Batel, is technically not an act of Hefker, meaning that if let's say I have an old appliance in my house, whatever the case may be, a chair, a table, a light, and I'm no longer interested in using it, I'm done with it, so I can be mafkirit. I can take it, put it on the curb, and put a little sign. Anybody, it's free for the taking. Anybody wants, you can come ahead and you can take it. That's called Hefker, when I go ahead and I declare something literally ownerless. Anybody can come and take it. That's the concept of Hefker. It's tempting to say that that's what's happening when it comes to Bittul Chametz, that I am declaring my Chametz Hefker so anybody could take it. In fact, we actually use that word. We say Libatel v'lehavik Hefker ka'afar da'ara. However, Moshe points out that even though we're using the word Hefker over there, it's clear according to most Rishonim that it's not really that I'm making it Hefker. First of all, if it was Hefker, wouldn't need to explain what that means. Ka'afar da'ara. Ka'afar da'ara means like the dust of the earth. I mean, Hefker means Hefker. Something's ownerless. If I want to put my TV set out on the street, I don't say it's hefker ka'afra da'ara. Just say it's hefker. Anybody can come and take it. So the fact that we use this expression ka'afra da'ara shows us that we mean to convey a different idea. And not only that, afra da'ara, right? Offer, the dust of the earth. It's not hefker. That's not hefker. I mean, this idea that it's sort of anybody's for the taking, that doesn't seem to be what it is that we are saying. Rather, the concept of bittul, which is, as Chazal say, a bittul believe, it's something that happens inside of one's heart. It's a declaration that I don't really care about this. Even though it's in my house, even though I'm not putting it out on the curb, even though it's still right here, in my mind, I'm telling you, li batel, it should be batel, vehefker ka'afra da'ara. Just like I don't really care about what's going on with the dust in front of my house right now, I don't care about this. The attitude that we try to espouse when relating to chametz at this final hour is I don't care about it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, thought, and emotional energy in and invest it into something that ultimately I really don't care much about. With this, Rav Moshe explained, we can appreciate something very, very beautiful, and that is that chametz. Well, let's compare chametz and matzah. We know that the major difference between chametz and matzah is chametz is something which rises, and matzah is something which is flat. So if you think about a matzah, it's a very, very flat piece of bread. It is bread. We recite the bracha v'amaz lechem and aretz, but unlike a challah or a loaf of bread where it rises, so it's flat. So what that means is that chametz represents something that is full of, you'll forgive me, full of a lot of air. It takes up a lot of space. It occupies, more space, and Rav Moshe says that it's symbolic of the extra material possessions that we have in this world, the things that we don't really need, Matzah, on the other hand, which the Torah calls lechem oni, which means like the bread of affliction, a poor man's bread. So this represents the basics, the basic stuff that we need in order to survive, so we can commit ourselves throughout our lives to Torah. And so therefore, when we recite the bittul chametz, what we're basically saying is, listen, there is chametz in my life. I have material interests. I own things that I don't really need, but I enjoy them. I'm not declaring them hefker. I'm not saying that anybody wants can come and take them. At the end of the day, they're part of my life. I'm sitting right now in a very comfortable chair. You see, it's I could move this way and that way, and it's leather. I don't know if it's actual leather, but it's nice and comfortable. So I'm not putting this out of my corner right now. I'm not putting it out there with a little sign that it's hefker. It's still here. However, given the fact that this is technically extra, I don't really need it. I could survive without it. I could sit on a much less comfortable chair. In fact, if I needed to, I could stand. I could sit on an egg carton. So therefore, what I say at this time is it should be batel ka'afra da'ara. Just like I don't really care much about the dust, the earth, the dirt that's in front of my house, I don't really care about this. The message of b'dikas chametz, of bir chametz, of doing this sort of inventory, the search for chametz in my possession, and to the extent that chametz represents the idea of mosaros, extra, the things that we don't really, really, really need, the things that we don't need for our bare survival, but we tend to enjoy sometimes more than we should. When we do this sort of cheshbon and nefesh, when we do b'dikas chametz and we walk around with a candle and we're searching not only around us, but hopefully searching inside, we do this cheshbon and we say, you know what? I have things in my life. I've got a lot of extra stuff that occupies a lot of space, but it's often filled with a lot of air, literally filled with a lot of hot air, just like chametz. And on Pesach, when we try to focus ourselves and ground ourselves and remind ourselves what is most important in life, when we left Mitzrayim, we didn't leave with big suitcases, and we didn't live with our no. So we had the possessions that we took with us, and we had this matzah on our backs, this lechem oni, reminding us again that sometimes in life we can get by with even less. And so therefore, what a beautiful, beautiful thought from Rav Moshe. The idea that when we recite the bittul chametz, it's not a declaration of hefker per se, but rather it's a declaration that there are things that I have in my life, there are things that I have in my possession, that when I stop and I really, really do a cheshbon nefesh, I come to the realization I don't really need this. Ultimately, this is not necessary. This is not essential for my survival, certainly not my spiritual survival. And so therefore, we prepare for Pesach by saying all of this stuff should be Hefker ke'afra da'ara. I don't really care about it. It should be batel. And by doing this sort of realignment, by doing this cheshbon nefesh, hopefully we're able to cleanse ourselves a little more of the chametz that we have in our heart, the se'or shebe'isa, the Yetzer Hara, which unfortunately so often interferes with our ability to think straight and to plan straight and to do things the way we should. I want to wish each and every one of you, first of all, a good Shabbos. Tomorrow night is Shabbos. We always speak together on Thursday night to wish each other good Shabbos. Echad kosher v'sameach. It should be a beautiful Yom Tov, one which gives each and every one of us a renewed sense of Amunah. As Pesach is the Chag Amunah, we should be able to feel a genuine sense of freedom, of Cherus, not because we have necessarily been enslaved in any literal sense, but the idea of spiritual redemption, of being liberated from the things that shackle us, the things that interfere with our ability to serve our Creator the way we want to. May we all be zocheh to have an uplifting Yom Tov, Chag kosher v'sameach, and I look forward to continuing to learn with you next week. Next week, I'm just thinking out loud with you. Also, it's going to be Erev Yom Tov again. So next Thursday night, hopefully same time, same channel. We'll see you then. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night, and hatzlacha on your